A human engineer receives the largest starship in the galaxy and is overwhelmed. He had worked for years in a small engineering bay on the edge of human space, tinkering with old starships, fixing broken systems that no one else could repair. He was good, exceptionally good, but he had always been a small-time engineer, the kind who solved minor problems, not commanded fleets. Yet here he was, standing at the edge of a dock that stretched farther than any city street he had ever walked, staring up at a starship so immense it seemed to blot out the stars. The celestial ark was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was bigger than some planets' cities, sleek yet imposing, with layers of hull that shimmered in subtle colors humans could barely perceive. Its corridors were wide enough for dozens of vehicles to pass at once, and the sheer scale of its systems, the engines, reactors, AI cores, was overwhelming. Elias felt a wave of nausea and awe as he approached the docking ramp. "Elias Vorn," said a voice behind him, calm but sharp. He turned to see a tall, thin alien in a silver uniform, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Its eyes were pale and reflective, unreadable. "Welcome to the celestial ark. We have watched humans carefully. Your ingenuity has caught our attention." Elias swallowed hard. I'm honored. I don't know if the alien cut him off. "Do not underestimate the challenge. This ship is the largest in the galaxy. It has never been entrusted to a single individual. You will either adapt or you will fail." The words were meant to intimidate. Elias felt the weight of them, but rather than fear, a strange spark of determination lit within him. Humans thrived under impossible odds. They always had. He stepped onto the ramp, his boots echoing against the hollow metal as he crossed the threshold. The interior of the ship was like entering another world. Hallways stretched endlessly, ceilings rising hundreds of feet overhead. Machines thrummed with power, some ancient, some impossibly new, their purposes inscrutable. Holographic displays blinked in alien languages. Interfaces responded to thought, touch, and sound simultaneously. It was too much to process all at once, and Elias felt a momentary panic, the same panic he had seen in his own crew back home when things went wrong. He reminded himself to breathe. Step by step, he started exploring. He checked systems he recognized: power conduits, life support, propulsion engines. Everything was on a scale he had never imagined. A single engine core was the size of a stadium, humming with energy beyond comprehension. The AI that ran the ship, something older than most civilizations, was alert, analyzing him with curiosity that bordered on suspicion. "You are inefficient," said a voice in his mind. Elias jumped. The AI could speak directly, bypassing translation. "Your motions are erratic. Your understanding is primitive. Are you truly capable of controlling this vessel?" I will learn," Elias said aloud, more to himself than the AI. Humans were resilient. That was their greatest strength. He had repaired starships thought irreparable, solved problems that alien engineers had abandoned as impossible. If he could do that, he could handle this. Hours passed as he familiarized himself with the controls. Some systems were intuitive, others felt alien in every sense. He discovered that many of the starship's modules were semi-sentient, capable of anticipating needs, repairing themselves, and even communicating with one another in a language he could barely grasp. The sheer complexity was dizzying. He realized that he would need to rethink everything he had ever known about engineering, or risk becoming lost within the ship's endless corridors. Then it happened. A sudden alarm echoed through the decks. Lights flashed red. The AI's voice, now urgent, filled the chamber. "Unauthorized activation detected. Containment breach imminent. Failure probable." Elias' heart raced. He ran toward the nearest control panel. Screens showed a cascade of warnings. A dormant alien defense system had activated, likely triggered by his initial scans. Missiles, shields, and internal mechanisms all moved as if alive. The scale of it was terrifying. A misstep could destroy the ship, or worse, Elias himself. He took a deep breath. Humans were good under pressure. They could improvise. First, he had to understand the system. He bypassed several unnecessary checks and linked the ship's core AI to a secondary interface, creating a temporary feedback loop. He moved quickly, shutting down the rogue system manually, rerouting energy flows to prevent an overload. Sweat dripped down his face as he worked, his mind running faster than he thought possible. And then, in one final moment of clarity, he made a decision that no alien would have considered. He ignored some of the ship's automated safety protocols that would have delayed him by minutes, maybe hours, and applied a direct override using human logic. The ship responded immediately. Energy stabilized. The warning lights dimmed. Silence returned. The AI spoke again, softer this time, almost impressed. "Your methods are unconventional, effective." Elias exhaled, relief washing over him. He realized then that the ship was not just a machine. It was a challenge, a puzzle. And humans were, perhaps, the only species capable of thinking far enough outside the expected parameters to master it. The next days blurred together. Elias mapped the corridors, learned to navigate the ship's endless decks, and cataloged systems the alien designers assumed were too complex for a human mind. Each discovery filled him with both wonder and responsibility. He found chambers filled with alien archives, massive engines capable of bending space, and rooms that seemed alive, as if the ship itself were breathing. He also began to notice small, subtle things. Systems would respond more favorably when he approached them intuitively rather than mechanically. The ship seemed to recognize human reasoning in a way it did not with aliens. It was as if the ship had been waiting for a mind like his, one willing to experiment, to take risks, to think creatively. One evening, while studying a particularly massive energy reactor, he heard the faintest vibration through the deck plates. He paused, listening. A low hum, almost musical, resonated through the ship. It was not malfunction, it was communication. The ship was trying to speak to him in ways beyond words, through patterns of energy and resonance. He smiled. Humans could sense patterns. Humans could improvise. This ship, terrifying as it was, might just become a partner. Word traveled quickly, even in a galaxy as vast as theirs. Aliens came to observe him, expecting incompetence. They watched as Elias navigated the Starship systems with methods they could not predict. Some scoffed. Some whispered. But by the end of the week, those same observers could not deny that he was learning fast, remarkably fast. Then the test came. A minor structural fault appeared in one of the outer hull segments, the kind of damage that could allow a vacuum breach. Automated repair drones were dispatched, but the system had never encountered a situation like this. The drones malfunctioned. The hull section teetered on failure. In moments, the breach would expand, potentially compromising the entire ship. Elias acted. He bypassed drone control entirely. He manually re-engineered the repair sequence, applying force adjustments, energy rerouting, and timing calibrations that no automated system could compute. In a tense 30 minutes, the breach was sealed. The hull stabilized. The aliens observing could not hide their astonishment. "He thinks differently," one whispered to another. "It is impressive." Elias did not feel pride, not yet. He felt only focus and anticipation. There was more to learn, more to master. He had touched only a fraction of the celestial ark's potential, and the galaxy's largest starship still held countless secrets. By the end of the first week, Elias had begun to see patterns in the ship, intuitively understanding some of its quirks. The AI, once skeptical and almost hostile, now allowed him more freedom, adjusting its protocols to accommodate human methods. The ship's massive engines hummed in response to his commands. Doors that had seemed impossible to unlock yielded to human insight. Systems that aliens had declared too complex became workable under his touch. Elias realized something fundamental. The ship was overwhelming, yes, but it was not designed to fail. It was designed to challenge. And humans, he now understood, thrived under challenges no alien could survive. Late one night, alone in the observation deck, he looked out into the starfield. The galaxy stretched before him, vast and infinite. He was alone, yes, but also powerful. Not because of technology alone, but because humans could see possibilities others could not. And somewhere deep inside the bowels of the celestial ark, he felt the faintest acknowledgement from the ship itself. A rhythm, a pulse, almost like a heartbeat, syncing with his own determination. Elias knew the real journey had only just begun. The galaxy would test him, yes, but it had never tested a human like him before. And humans always found a way. The days that followed Elias' first victories were not easy. The celestial ark was vast beyond imagining, and each deck he explored seemed to contain a new challenge, a new riddle, a new system that refused to obey the rules of human engineering. Yet Elias was not discouraged. Humans thrived where others faltered. Where aliens expected failure, Elias found opportunity. He had begun to map the ship, making careful notes of energy flows, structural reinforcements, and the peculiar AI routines that seemed to respond to intuition rather than strict logic. The alien observers had begun to linger more often. They did not trust humans. They believed Elias' successes were lucky, but their curiosity had begun to overcome their skepticism. "Your methods are unconventional," the AI admitted one evening. Its voice was softer than before, almost curious. "You do not follow standard operational logic, yet your results are efficient." Elias smiled. "Standard doesn't always mean right. Sometimes it just means safe for the unimaginative." The AI hummed. He had come to understand that humankind's unpredictability fascinated it. It was designed for precision, for calculation. Humans were none of those things, but they were creative, adaptive, and relentless. Elias' first major discovery came in a section of the ship labeled only as the temporal nexus. He had stumbled upon it by following energy readings that made no sense to him at first. The chamber was enormous, filled with spinning fields of light, arcs of energy, and complex arrays that bent reality in ways he could barely comprehend. Aliens had ignored it for centuries, believing it was too dangerous to attempt to operate. But Elias saw potential. He approached the interface cautiously, studying patterns rather than commands. Slowly, tentatively, he began to connect circuits in ways the AI had not anticipated. He did not understand everything, it was beyond him, but he applied intuition, trial, and improvisation. The effect was immediate. Energy flows that had been chaotic began to stabilize. Systems that had been inert for centuries hummed to life. A map of the galaxy projected itself in 3 dimensions, showing not only locations but energy currents, hyperspace lanes, and even weak points in previously impassable regions. The alien observers who had entered the chamber quietly froze. One whispered, "No human should not do this." Another added, "It is impossible." Elias, unaware of the whispers, focused entirely on the work. He was not thinking about impressing anyone. He was thinking about understanding the ship, about mastering it in a way no one had before. That night, the first real challenge arrived. A fleet of hostile alien ships, pirates known for taking massive starships as trophies, entered the sector. Their intent was obvious: seize the celestial ark or destroy it if they could not. Communication attempts were ignored. Their ships were fast, armed with devastating weapons. The alien observers panicked. "We must evacuate." "You cannot control this vessel alone," one said, urgency in every tone. Elias shook his head. "We're not evacuating, we're not running. There's a better way." He had been learning. Humans did not rely only on firepower. Humans relied on ingenuity. He quickly assessed the ship's systems and devised a plan. The celestial ark was massive, yes, but it was also adaptable. Modular systems could rearrange in moments, shields could be redirected, and engines could shift power in ways designed for alien logic, but exploitable by human intuition. He moved through the bridge, issuing commands to systems that had never received them before. Doors that had seemed impenetrable rotated into new positions, corridors extended or contracted, energy redirected to shields at just the right angles. The alien observer stared wide-eyed, as the ship itself seemed to bend to his will, not in brute force, but in cleverness. When the hostile fleet opened fire, the first salvo bounced harmlessly off shields adjusted in a pattern no alien could predict. Missiles and energy beams were drawn into traps of their own design, rerouted by human improvisation. The enemy ships, expecting destruction, were met with baffling maneuvers and sudden countermeasures that left them struggling to respond. Elias felt a thrill of focus. Humans excelled under pressure. Humans thrived where others froze. Every decision was rapid, calculated in a way that combined instinct with logic. He was not faster than the enemy, but he was unpredictable in a way that no AI or alien could match. Hours passed in a tense dance of strategy and improvisation. The ship moved with impossible grace for its size, dodging attacks, shielding vulnerable points, and projecting holographic decoys that misled the enemy at every turn. Aliens, watching, could only mutter and point. How? The breakthrough came when Elias discovered a hidden feature in the ship's engines, an ability to compress space in short bursts, a method of faster-than-light maneuvering the designers had thought too risky to use. He calibrated it with human intuition, testing the limits. The celestial ark blinked across space in moments, appearing behind the enemy fleet completely undetected. The pirates panicked, their fleet in disarray. Elias did not destroy them. That was not necessary. The humans had outsmarted them, showing superior strategy. In moments, the pirates fled, unwilling to challenge a captain who thought so differently. For the first time, Elias felt the galaxy truly notice humans. The alien observers, still on the bridge, could not hide their astonishment. Humans think in ways we cannot predict. They improvise. He did not feel pride. He felt focus. There were still systems he did not understand, still corridors he had not explored, still mysteries the celestial ark held. But for the first time he felt a sense of mastery, not over the ship but with it. He and the vessel were beginning to understand each other, to communicate in the strange, intuitive way that only humans could manage. In the quiet that followed, he explored new chambers, uncovering alien archives, research logs, and experimental technology that had never been tested. Most of it was too advanced for any species to fully comprehend, but Elias approached it methodically, applying human intuition where rigid logic failed. He repaired ancient energy matrices, recalibrated systems designed for eons of operation, and even rewrote minor AI protocols to better suit the unpredictable nature of human problem-solving. One discovery surprised him more than any other. Deep within the ship, he found a chamber containing devices capable of manipulating gravity fields. No alien had dared use them. They were considered too unstable, but Elias saw an opportunity. Using his understanding of physics and his experience with improvisation, he carefully activated one, bending gravity in a controlled pattern. For the first time, he lifted a vehicle the size of a skyscraper effortlessly, moving it through the chamber with precision. The observers gasped. One whispered, "He does not follow, he invents." Elias smiled faintly. Humans did not just follow instructions. Humans created solutions. Humans adapted. And the celestial ark, for all its alien sophistication, was beginning to respond to that uniquely human way of thinking. But not all challenges came from outside. Some were internal. He discovered that certain sections of the ship were designed to be self-correcting, to resist unauthorized influence. He spent days attempting to bypass security protocols, AI routines, and energy barriers. Failure was constant, yet every failure taught him something. Every misstep was a lesson in human problem-solving, persistence, and creativity. By the end of the second week, Elias had begun to map not only the ship's systems, but also its behavior patterns. He began predicting responses, learning the language of the starship. He understood that where aliens had relied on rigid procedures, he relied on observation, pattern recognition, and ingenuity. He could now anticipate how systems would respond, often before the AI even completed its calculations. Then, the ultimate test arrived. The AI detected an approaching fleet from a previously unknown alien civilization. Unlike the pirates, this fleet was highly advanced, coordinated, and dangerous. They had weapons capable of tearing the celestial arc apart, and they believed no single human could command a vessel of such scale. The alien observers panicked again. "We cannot allow him to confront this alone." Elias shook his head. "We do not run, we adapt." He analyzed the threat, calculated possible maneuvers, and began issuing commands. The ship responded immediately, shifting power, extending decoy systems, and activating energy corridors that could reroute attacks in milliseconds. For the first time, the AI did not just assist him. It seemed to collaborate, adjusting its predictions to account for his human creativity. The fleet arrived, weapons blazing. Elias moved with precision, directing the ship through maneuvers that no alien would attempt. Missiles were deflected, shields rotated to absorb energy, and the enemy found itself trapped in a maze of unpredictability. Hours passed. The human mind and the ancient AI worked in tandem. The enemy could not predict, could not adapt, and finally, they began to retreat. The victory was not total, but it was decisive. Humans had proven their worth, not through raw firepower, but through ingenuity, intuition, and the ability to think differently. When the fleet finally vanished into hyperspace, Elias stood on the bridge, exhausted but focused. He realized that humans had a unique advantage in the galaxy: unpredictability. Aliens could calculate, could anticipate, could strategize, but they could not improvise in ways humans could. And when faced with challenges that no one else could solve, humans thrived. Elias had learned much about the celestial arc. He had learned much about himself. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, mysteries, and civilizations far more advanced than humanity. Yet humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, problem solvers, and the only species capable of commanding the impossible. And he was only beginning to scratch the surface of what the ship could do. Elias Vorn had grown into the celestial arc like a shadow grows across the land, slowly, quietly, until it was impossible to separate human from Starship. Weeks of exploration, improvisation, and small victories had taught him more than any alien manual ever could. He knew the ship's systems, its quirks, and even the subtleties of the AI that had once doubted him. But nothing could have prepared him for the threat now looming over the galaxy. Sensors flared with warnings. A massive armada approached from beyond known space, a civilization so advanced, so unified, that even the most sophisticated alien observers had paled in fear. They were not raiders, they were conquerors. Their ships outclassed everything in the sector, weapons powerful enough to tear planets apart, shields that could shrug off orbital bombardment. The alien observers turned to Elias with panic in their eyes. "We must retreat." "You cannot face this fleet alone," Elias shook his head. "Retreat is for those who cannot adapt. We will not run, we will outthink them." He had learned that humans thrived on challenges. The larger the problem, the sharper their focus. And this armada, massive and terrifying as it was just another puzzle. First, he assessed the situation. The enemy fleet moved with military precision, their formations tight, their weapons synchronized. Aliens would have reacted with pre-programmed strategies, predictable and rigid. Elias thought differently. Humans did not follow strict patterns. They created patterns the enemy could not anticipate. He began issuing commands. The celestial ark was enormous, capable of actions no single alien ship could attempt. It could rotate its massive sections independently, reconfigure shields, and even rearrange internal modules to create new tactical possibilities. Elias activated decoy systems, projecting multiple holographic versions of the ship that mirrored every movement, every energy signature, confusing the enemy's sensors. Then came the engines. Using his understanding of the temporal nexus and human intuition, he initiated a series of rapid hyperspace pulses, tiny blinks of faster-than-light movement that allowed the ship to appear and disappear unpredictably across the battlefield. The enemy fleet, trained to anticipate and react, found themselves chasing shadows. Their weapons fired blindly. Hours passed in tense anticipation. The alien observers muttered among themselves. No human could, no human should. They were forced to watch as Elias' unconventional thinking created a battlefield unlike any they had ever seen. But the challenge was far from over. One of the enemy ships, larger and more advanced than the others, began to bypass the decoys, closing in on the Celestial Ark's main hull. A direct hit could tear the ship apart, obliterate its systems, and kill everyone aboard. Elias acted instantly. He accessed the gravity manipulation chamber he had discovered weeks earlier. By carefully bending local gravity fields, he created a microvoid around the approaching ship, forcing it off course without touching it. The maneuver required precise timing, a perfect understanding of energy flows and intuition. One mistake could have torn both ships apart. The move worked. The massive enemy ship veered uncontrollably, missing the celestial ark entirely. Elias exhaled briefly, then refocused. There was more work to do. He began to coordinate internal defenses, rerouting energy to shields in patterns the enemy could not predict. Weapon systems were not just fired, they were used as part of a broader strategy, creating traps and confusion. The human mind, improvisational and intuitive, orchestrated a battle that alien logic could not comprehend. Hours turned into a tense rhythm of anticipation, adaptation, and reaction. Elias was everywhere at once in his mind, connecting modules, redirecting power, and anticipating enemy movements. Every success gave him confidence. Every failure was a lesson. Humans learned from mistakes faster than any alien could compute. Finally, he decided it was time to strike, not with overwhelming firepower, but with ingenuity. He focused on the enemy fleet's coordination. Humans could exploit rigidity. Using the ship's ability to project false energy signatures, he created the illusion of multiple fleets appearing from hyperspace. The enemy, believing themselves outnumbered, began to scatter, but the largest ship remained, stubborn and determined. Elias analyzed it carefully. Its weapon systems were synchronized in a predictable rhythm. By applying rapid, precise hyperspace pulses combined with shield rotations, he manipulated its targeting patterns, causing it to fire on its own formation. In moments, the enemy fleet's cohesion broke apart. Panic spread. Elias realized the battle was turning. The alien observers who had doubted him at every step watched in disbelief. "Humans," one whispered. "They do not fight like anyone else." Hours later, when the final ship retreated beyond sensor range, Elias allowed himself a small moment of relief. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. A single human commanding a starship larger than any fleet, defeating a force considered unbeatable. The aftermath was extraordinary. Aliens who had mocked humanity now spoke in hushed tones of Elias Vorn. Word spread quickly across the sectors. Humans could think differently, adapt quickly, and achieve the impossible. Yet Elias did not feel victorious in the traditional sense. Victory for humans was not about domination. It was about survival, adaptation, and ingenuity. He understood that the galaxy was full of challenges far greater than this battle, and he would need to continue learning, exploring, and innovating. In the quiet that followed, he began exploring deeper parts of the celestial arc. He found chambers that contained ancient alien archives, experimental engines, and devices that could manipulate energy in ways even he did not fully understand. Every discovery was a puzzle. Every system offered an opportunity to learn. Humans thrived on challenges, and this ship offered endless ones. He also began mentoring the alien observers, not formally but through demonstration. They saw how he approached problems, how he improvised when rules failed, and how he never panicked under pressure. Slowly, they began to learn from him, realizing that humans brought something new to the galaxy: intuition, creativity, and adaptability that could not be replicated. Weeks later, as Elias stood in the observation deck, looking out into the vast galaxy, he understood the true meaning of command. The celestial arc was not just a ship. It was a partner, a puzzle, and a test. And humans, with their endless curiosity and relentless ingenuity, were exactly the species capable of mastering it. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had assumed humans would fail, that they were too small, too fragile, too predictable. Yet Elias had proven otherwise. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and relentless. They could survive situations no alien could navigate. They could master machines designed to be impossible, and they could change the rules of engagement simply by thinking differently. In that moment, Elias made a quiet vow. He would continue to explore, continue to innovate, and continue to prove that humanity was capable of greatness beyond expectation. The celestial arc was only the beginning. There were more systems to explore, more mysteries to solve, and more opportunities to show the galaxy the power of human ingenuity. The human engineer who had once been overwhelmed now commanded the impossible, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.